Good morning. Today is Daled Iyar, Hod Shebetif'eres. It could be looked at in many ways, but one way is that Tif'eres is Torah, and Hod Shebetif'eres is number one, the bitul that we need to have when we learn Torah, realizing that it's not a human wisdom, it's divine wisdom. And therefore, the more bitul, the more integration. And also the power that we need, the power of Hod, which is also has its akshanus, so to speak, its stubbornness, out of bitul, to be able to do exactly what we learned about last week, to be able to apply all the learning that we are learning with the bitul of Hod, also should have the extra power of Netzach and Hod, as we learned last time, that are rooted in Keser, which means a neshama strength, extra strength to bring all the learning down to Maaseh B'Poal. And that leads us to page Kuf Tzadik Beis, which is 383. And I would like to move on. We learned the Iyar number 2 about Kel Elyon, if you remember, I hope. And we are learning about the third Keli of the Kaved, the Kavda, which is also including these three levels of Pnimi, Emtzai, V'chitzon, the inner, the middle, and the outer. And we learned that the Kaved, which we use the human liver as a mashal, of course, for the spiritual liver of Atzilus, the Kaved is a keli to the midos of Netzach Hod Yesod that come in a revealed way from the Halal Asmali, from this left side of the heart. And they are now invested and into the blood of the Kaved, to bring that which we reacted to in our heart, to bring it Maaseh B'Poal. And that means, includes all the instinctive responses to our experiences, like in the mashal that he gave, that the child knows how to run away from fire or to go close to things that are desirable to him. And we learned about, it began with Netzach, that Netzach is Nitzuach, the power of overcoming, that has an extra strength from the soul, and even stronger than the Sechel and the Midos, as we learn. That the Netzach is even stronger than the Midah of Netzach, of enduring and overcoming, is even stronger than the intellect and the emotions. And we learned Ha'ara number 2, the footnote 2, from the Alter Rebbe Taf Kuf Samaches. So, why Netzach needs extra strength? Le'avi, now we are on page Kuf Tzadik Beis, the right side, the main paragraph, the line that starts Elyon and end of parentheses. The footnote after footnote 2. So why Netzach, Nehi Bechlal, and now he's talking about Netzach, requires extra strength, Lehavi hadavar bepoal mamash, to bring that which until then is more theoretical, very theoretical in the mind, more real in the emotions, and practical bepoal mamash, but then from theoretical and from emotional, it has to now be translated to action. And that's a gap between the first two and the last one, between Chabad, Chagas, and Nehi. And for that, we need extra strength. Vahainu. And how do we translate and apply that which we realize and that which we personally react to, בפועל ממש, how do we apply it to action? והיינו על ידי העלם השכל והמידוס לגמרי, by concealing the intellect and the midos entirely, because you cannot be taken over by emotions when you are in action. You cannot be taken over by your mind when you are in action. You have to put them, as we said in the past, in the back burner. So you will now engage in action, not in emotion, not in meditation, but in action. And that requires extra strength, and that requires the concealment of the emotions and the intellect, so action can take precedence. Ki netzach anaf hulu, because netzach, and as well as hod, is a branch that comes out of, in case of netzach, of chesed, and hod is a branch that comes out from gvura. That means it comes out of it. It's not anymore in the realm of emotion. It's now an anaf. It branches out to be applied in action. V'chen hahod, so too regarding hod. Today is hod shebetiferet, hu b'chinas habitul. It's the submission, and that is based on trust, on a higher power, on a higher truth. Hanimshach bepoal mamash. It's the bitul, it's the humility and the humbleness that comes to be actualized in action. And we know that Yidden that have a high level of bitul can be very stubborn and can very loyal and can very uncompromising in avodas Hashem. Dafka simple Yidden can be very, very strong in adhering to the mitzvahs. And that comes from bitul. So it's the bitul animshach bepoal mamash. It's the bitul that is drawn. It's not just an inner bitul, it's a bitul that is applied to action. Vahainu, that means the bitul that is required. Why do we require bitul? That action requires bitul because at the stage of action we are not inspired anymore, so to speak. Not by the intellect and not by the emotions, because maise is maise. It's not intellect, it's not an idea, and it's not an emotion, it's an action, it's a physical action. And for that you need bitul, because as long as you are, inspired, when you're inspired intellectually or emotionally, you don't need much bitul. You're inspired. But when you are not governed by your intellect or by your emotions, but now you are focusing on action, it's not about inspiration, it's about action. And for that you need bitul. You need the bitul of the self to carry out bepoal mamash, and not to remain just in your emotional or intellectual inspiration. V'hainu, that means hagam shenis'almu hasechel ve'amidos legamri, even though together with the concealing, that the midos and the sechel and the midos now at the stage of action, they are completely concealed. Mikol makom, nevertheless, Iyar habitul b'maise kefi hasechel. The bitul will carry out the action the way the sechel wants. V'hainu, that means lefi she'af al pi shenis'alem legamre, that even though the Chabad is not anymore running the show right now in terms of what is dominant. What is dominant is the Nehi, not the Chabad. Mikol makom, nevertheless, hu me'ir b'vchina se'ara de'he'ara. So yes, when a person is in action, he is not engaged in meditation or reflection or mental assessment. But he'ara de'he'ara, a radiance over radiance from the intellect is still there. Why he'ara de he'ara? Why
Different
Ha'ara
minds?
de Ha'ara? A shine from a shine. It's a secondary shine. Because the first Ha'ara goes to Chagas. The first radiance from Chabad goes to Chagas. And the second, and that a radiance from that goes to Nahi. So it's a Ha'ara de Ha'ara. Ha'ara always means the external aspect, the lowest aspect of the higher that comes to the lower. That's Ha'ara. It's only a radiance from the light. And then Ha'ara de Ha'ara, because you're not in Chagas, you're in Nahi. So the Nahi gets the Ha'ara from Chagas. So it's the Ha'ara de Ha'ara of Chabad. And physically, and there the spiritually, there's also a membrane. Why? Why there is Ha'ara of Ha'ara? Nahi is a secondary kind of Ha'ara. Why kinis alem? Because whatever is higher was concealed. Why? Al yedei parsa, through the tzimtzum, or through the uh, partition, so to speak, that is called chatzar hakaved, the courtyard of the liver, the membrane that covers the liver and separates between the liver and the breathing organs. And that is bivchinas hamaise. That is shayach to the realm of action.
Kabbalistically, the nakuda of Netzach is a chirik. It's a single point. And that very well explains why what Netzach is, right? You have to extraneously separate everything, and then you're only left with a single point.
Yeah, you have to focus everything into a point of action. Yes, very good. It also means cracks, like, he'ara de he'ara. It's not direct light, it comes from the crack of the tchirik. It's a process of tzimtzum. You don't have the or of Chabad anymore. In the first place, you don't have the light of Chabad anymore, is in Chagas. There is a first tzimtzum, that's a ara. That means only the aspect of the intellect that is shayach to the midos comes down, not the intellect be'etzem. And then from Chagas, there is another tzimtzum, to Nahi. So there's ara over ara. Ara means always a tzimtzum. That only the lower of the higher becomes the higher of the lower. So it's a reflection of a reflection. And therefore, the intellectual inspiration, when it comes to Nahi, is very minimal. And therefore, because you cannot be taken over with reflection when you have to be practical. And you cannot be taken over with emotion when you have to be focused and practical, the way Fegi says that he has to come to a nekuda of Maisa. You can't go all over your emotions. Nevertheless, there is a ara. Nevertheless, there is the action, hopefully, is a result of Chabad, eventually. So this is Netzach and Hod, V'hayesod. And then comes the Yud of the Nahi, the Netzach, Hod, and Yud Yesod. הוא בבחינת ההתקשרוס להביא הדבר בפועל ממש. Is the personal attachment to bring all this to Paul Mamash. It's the attachment between you and the thing that you're doing. And this is Masha'enken, this is unlike another type of iskashrus. Yesod is iskashrus, and Das is iskashrus, right? Adam yada et Chava, Adam connected with Chava. So Das is iskashrus, but Das הוא iskashrus b'musag or b'muskal cholu. Das is the personal connection and reaction to that which is conceptualized, muskal, or musag, and understood, chokhmah and bina. Muskal and musag, right? Haskala is chokhmah, hasaga is bina. So das is the way you connect to the intellect. Yesod is the way you connect to the idea to bring it lemaise. And now, v'hine klalus gimel midos elu, these general midos of these midos of Netzach Hod Yesod nikraos midos shebemaise. They are called the midos in action. The self-measurement, midos also means measuring. It's how you measured yourself based on your Chabad and based your emotional reactions. You measured it personally in order, and now it will be expressed in action that is unique to you. And these midos shebemaise, which means the way the midos come into the kaved, it's the liver, הנמשכים מעצם מידוס הטבעיות שבהבל החזה. From where are they coming? The midos shebemaise. The midos shebemaise, which means the midos of Nehi, come from the midos of Chagas, from the midos themselves. מעצם מידוס הטבעיים שבהבל החזה, which is in the breadth of the chest, as we learn, and specifically come from the left side of the heart, where you actually have the midah itself, the experiencing of the midah itself, and this is then expressed in hevel hachazeh, in the breadth of the heart, and whatever that means, I'm not sure, and that connection to the emotions, also to the breathing. But then, when Nehi is how these midos that are experienced in the heart, the right side of the heart is the midos, the way they are created in the heart from the effect of the Chabad. The left side of the heart is where the midos are really experienced. That's the inside experience. And then mezigatam hu hi bichli hakaved. And then they blend into the keli of the liver. From the heart, the emotions are through the hevel hachazeh are blending, merging into the keli of the liver, the nehi. Vezeu bchinas murgash the midos. This is the aspect of the midos of the heart that is murgash. There is muskal, murgash, and mutba. We learn muskal is the midah, where the midah meets the intellect, the reason for the midah. Haskala, muskal. Murgash is where you feel the midah, the left side of the heart. Regesh, murgash, להרגיש, to feel, to sense. And mutba is where it has the impact, the instinctive impact on the lower keli. And that is the merging or the meeting of the heart with the liver. And that's mutba because it is coined. Mutba also matbea. And it is also teva, which means the natural instinctive reaction of the liver to the heart. And in any case, we are talking about the murgash, the sense of the midos, השורה בכלי האמצעי דלב, that dwells in the middle of the keli of the heart, which is the left side, שהוא חלל השמאלי, which is the left ventricle of the heart, הנ"ל that we learned about already, חולו. It's interesting if you look at footnote 3 in the back of the book, Mare Mekoimos, page 474, you have Ha'ara 3, וכללוס עניין הכבד הוא טבע החי לנענע. The general inyan of the kaved in a human, we are learning about these organs in the body as a mashal, as a metaphor for the kelim of Atzilus. Don't forget that. But okay, klalus inyan hakaved, the general idea of the liver is hu teva hachai lena'anea, is the nature of the living being, of a living being to move. כי עניין התנועה מקום למקום, because movement from one place to the other, הוא עניין המעשה. That's the עניין of action. Why? שהוא הסלבשוס הנפש בדבר נבדל ממנו. It's the the way the nefesh is invest itself in something separate from itself. And that causes movement. When the nefesh invests itself in something outside of itself, the expression of a living being of that is movement. So one of the ways to know if someone is alive, to see if it still moves. And because this is the general thing of the kavod, which the kavod is the instinctive functioning of the different organs of the body. There is a word for it in English, I forgot. The instinctive organs, how do you call that system? The automatic system of the inner organs. Okay, וכללוס עניין הכבד, the general עניין of the liver, הוא הטבע החי לנענע, is the nature of the living being to move. The kaved is associated with the instinctive functioning of the being, whatever it is, but the lower aspect of it, which is טבע החי, the nature of a living being to move, כי עניין התנועה ממקום למקום, the movement from one place to the other, הוא עניין המעשה. This is the expression of the faculty of action, which is what? הסלבשוס הנפש בדבר נבדל ממנו. The way, as long as it's Chabad, Chagat, you can say that it's still the activity between the nefesh and itself. But when it comes to Maise, this is how the nefesh is now invested in something separate from itself. And this is expressed through tnuah, through movement. Interesting, just a comment. והנה בחינס פנימיוס שבכבד. Now, we are at the kavda. We look at the kaved and we know now it's functioning. Now we need to remember, right, to discuss the fact that the kaved too has the inner, the middle, and the outer. The inner of the keli, the middle of the keli, the outer of the keli, right? So, pnimius v'bakaved, the inner aspect of the kaved, of the liver, hu anikra bazohar kista de chayusa. Remember that we learned this already in the perek itself. We are learning now the bio of the parasha. And I really encourage you, after we finish the bio, to, as homework for yourself, because I want to move on, to review and read the perek itself, the chapter 30, Lamed, in the Maimar itself, because now we are learning the bio of Rabbi Hillel Parasha, the ultimate mashpia. In any case, the pnimius is called, the pnimius of the kaved is called the kista de chayusa, the little pocket of life that remains, the trace of life, the kista of chayusa. And what is it? Shehu b'chinas reshimu, it's the impression, it's only an impression, a trace that is left, shenish'ar mibchinas ruach, that remains from the level of ruach, because now we are on the level of nefesh. When we were in the Chabad, we were on the level of neshama. In Chagas, it's the level of ruach, the heart. And the kaved is nefesh. So there is a little trace, an impression from ruach, from the heart, that is inspired, ha'ara, from the Chabad, the mind, the brain. But it's a little impression that is left in the liver. שהוא בחינס רשימו שנשאר מבחינס רוח בשעת השינה, that remains from ruach at the time. Ruach is a personal reaction, right? The midos that is coming from the mind. בשעת השינה, when a person sleeps. So there is a pocket of life remains. He's not functioning intellectually, he's not functioning emotionally, but there's a trace of that is still there in him when he is sleeping. שברשימו זויס יש left side גם כן הערה מבחינס חב"ד שבנפש. In this rishimo that is in the kaved, there is a trace, there is a הערה, there is some minute radiance from the Chabad in the nefesh, רק נקרא חב"ד דקטנוס, but it's called Chabad de Katnus, Chabad in a small of smallness, in a small form. What does it mean? That is not full awareness. When a person is sleeping, he is not aware. The Chabad is not shining, is not revealed, is not operating, but the trace of it is. How so? We have all kinds of letters flying in our mind when we sleep, all kinds of dreams, many of them not in order, all kinds of things that are associations that float in our minds when we are sleeping, that one not necessarily is coherently connected with the other, right? That this is the katnus of Chabad that is still present when a person is asleep. וראיה לזה, the proof for it, ממה שמאירים אותיות המחשבה בשעת השינה, when there are letters of thought shining, some letters of thought are still shining or still operating in time of sleep, some thoughts are still floating in a person's head, וידוע דהולדס אותיות המחשבה הוא מבחינת חוב שבנפש. And we know that from where are thoughts coming? From Chokhmah and Bina. Thoughts is a levush, but they come from Chokhmah and Bina. But in this case, they are only like remnants of the mental activity of the day is left at night when he is asleep. כעניין החלומות, like dreams. ההמה בלתי מסודרים. But the dreams are not orderly. The oisios are not orderly. They don't necessarily make sense. כי, why? סידור האוסיוס הוא על פי גילוי השכל המאיר בהם. The order of the letters, the order of thoughts, the coherency of thoughts is guided by as much as the sechel is revealed. When the sechel is revealed, the person is conscious, aware, and awake, then it shines in letters, and the letters will show up in an orderly fashion, and the thought of a person will make sense. ובעת השינה, however, at the time of sleep, השכל הוא בתכלס הקטנוס וההלם. The intellect is in ultimate smallness and concealment. אך ישנו בהיעלם, but is still there in a concealed way. So the intellect is not revealed, a trace of it is revealed. Very, very minute trace is revealed. But it's still there in a concealed way in the consciousness, so to speak, of a person who is asleep. וראיה, the proof for it, מעניין הפתרון חולו ודל. I think what it means here, that there is an art of solving dreams, like Yosef, poter chalomos. He was solving dreams. So there is a science or a knowledge of solving dreams, because dreams do have, in their awkward way, they have some meaning in them. But it's not revealed, it's not orderly, and you have to be an expert to know what's behind the dream. And many of them, says the Gemara, are anyhow nonsense. But some of them are not. But they are showing up in the person's mind in a very concealed, in a very disordered, in a very, unclear and vague way. And all this is to now will turn into what we learned already in the Maimar in the Perek, when the Rebbe says, "V'hainu," this sleep is a mashal for galus, for exile of the Jewish soul and the Jewish mind. V'hainu inyan hagalus, exile, shenikra shena ve'ibur, that is called sleep and pregnancy. As we learned that in pregnancy, the fetus is positioned in the womb, in the uterus of the mother, in a way of the head is down, folded onto the chest, and the chest onto the knees. And that means the Chabad is concealed by the Chagas, and Chagas is concealed by the Nehi. There is no revelation, there is no uprightness of the revelation of the intellect and the emotions. Everything is concealed and folded inward without revelation. Kemo shina, like in sleep, when all the koichos, the intellectual, the emotional koichos of the person, and even practical, are in sleep. They are dormant. They are withdrawn to the nefesh and not revealed. ועל דרך זה כשהוא בהקיץ. And so too, coming back to the operation of the kaved, of the liver and nehi, when a person is awake, בהקיץ, הקיצו ורננו, wake up and rejoice, שייך נאפר, those who dwell in the dust, we need to wake up. But coming back to the liver, רק כשעושה בפועל ממש, so in a way, the Rebbe says, the stage of Nehi is similar to sleep, when the Chabad and the Chagas are not shining. They are concealed, right? Because in order to get into action, I have to conceal my intellectual activity, I have to conceal my emotional reaction, and to focus on the chirik of myself. So too, when a person is awake, but when he has to be to operate on the level of action, רק כשעושה בפועל ממש, when he is engaged in actual deed, צריך להתעלם הערס השכל והמידוס לגמרי. The shine of the sechel and the midos has to be completely concealed. עד שלא יישאר רק בחינס רשימו מחב"ד בלבד. To the extent that only a reshimu, only a slight impression should be left, so a person should still do what he thought to do. We still have to have a connection between the mind and, God forbid, there shouldn't be a connection at all between the mind and the emotions and the action. Then the person is not with it. But the connection is very light, which means it's only a regime on a trace from the Chabad. The whole reflection, appreciation, intellectually or emotionally, cannot be now present in the front burner. They have to be concealed. And only a trace from Chabad, the reasoning for action, remains. And now, Fegi, ואפשר שהספשטוסו בכלי הפנימי שבכבד בפרט, and it's possible, says the Parashah. I don't remember if the Rebbe said it or the Parashah is saying, that the manifestation, the spreading of the reshimu, the spreading of the reshimu, the manifestation of the reshimu from Chabad on the level of action of Nehi, in the kli hapnimi shebakaved bifrat, specifically in the inner keli of the kaved, of the liver, right, the inner one, where is the connection between the trace of the mind of the Chabad and the kaved in the inner aspect of the liver, and specifically ובבחינת גידי הרגשה הנמצאים בכל האיברים, through the sensory veins, vessels that are present in all the organs, meaning the nerves. So he is saying here, Feigi, that the connection, the manifestation of the trace of Chabad and Chagas that was left in order to, the minimal that is needed in order to operate and function and do action, is done through the connection with the brain, in other words, is done through the nerve system that is present in all organs. That's the inner aspect of the liver. The inner aspect of the liver is a trace from the Chabad, that all has to be concealed and only a trace left that is transmitted and communicated to the liver through the nerve system from the brain. That's the inner keli of the liver. Now we come, after the parenthesis here, ואמצעי שבכבד, the line that starts שבכבד, the middle keli of the kaved, of the liver, הוא ההספילוס במורגש במעשה. This is the actual reaction, במורגש, in a sensory way, in action. That you are actually sensing. At this point, you are sensing your body. How so? והיינו עניין ההרגש שבדם הוא הנפש. This is the sensing which is manifesting in the blood, which is the nefesh, as we know, Adam or nefesh, is where the blood is where the nefesh, the lowest aspect of the soul, is invested in the body through the blood. The gashmi sheberuchni meets the ruchni shebegashmi, where in the blood, specifically the steam of the blood. But in the blood, there is a hergesh. What hergesh? A sensing of something. What? Lehargish haispilus. To sense the self-reaction. So a person is, let's say, gets excited. You feel it physically in the blood. How so? Umispashet bagidim hadovkim. And it is spreading through the pulsating vessels. When you're excited, you feel the pulsation of the blood much rapidly and intensely. It is a physical sensation when you're excited. You can feel it in your stomach, you can feel it the hands are tickling, whatever it is. There is a pulsation of the blood that is a response, and there is an expression of the ispilus that is remained in the kaved, in the middle keli. Ve'aikar, and the main one, bedofek shebayad, in the pulsation of the hand, of the wrist. That's where we measure the pulsation. כמו שאנו רואים, as we see, שכל מי שיפעול באספילוס, that anyone who acts out of excitement, אספילוס, יש חיוס רב בפעולתו. There is a lot of vitality in his action. If he is excited, there will be more vitality. מה שאין כן כשאינו פועל באספילוס כולו, which is not the case when he's not functioning out of ispilus. Let's say he has to do something, he does it by rote. So if there not be a intense, fast pulsation of blood, and all these physical symptoms of the excitement will not be there. So here you see how the blood, physical blood, is now manifesting. That's the personal reaction of a person that origins in his mind. But in the middle keli of the liver, this is where it is transferred and manifests and mispashet, spreads into the blood. That's the middle keli. Ve'achitzon dekaved, and the outer keli of the liver, hu bchinas nehi shebo, is the nehi, the most outer aspect, the nehi of the liver itself. Shehu, you can say that the inner keli is the chabad of the liver. The middle keli is the chagas of the liver. And the outer keli is the nehi of the liver. Okay? שבו, שהוא מה ששולח חיצוניוס החיוס בכל האיברים, is now there is a separation. The liver is causing a separation in the energy, meaning that the liver sends the external aspect of vitality to all organs. That's the external, the more physical aspect. And the pnimius and the higher aspect of the energy, mavdil, he separates, means the liver, it separates it. והיינו על ידי הספשטוס גידי הדם שבכל האיברים ודל. And he doesn't complete it, but in the perek itself, it separates, and the liver, it says that separates between the higher energy and the lower energy. The lower chayus, it sends into all organs, and the higher level of chayus, it sends into the higher organs like the heart and the mind and so on. Vahainu, this is the spiritual galus. If you operate only from nehi, right? So it's like Yiddishkeit by rote, or we do something by rote with there's no inspiration whatsoever. Hainu inyan galus, shenikret shena ve'ibur. Galus is called sleep and pregnancy. Ki shena kivyachol hu lemala. What is shena? Shena is lemala bivchinas Malchus de Atzilus. Malchus of Atzilus is called Nikres Nefesh Kol Chai. Malchus of Atzilus is where our worlds are created, where Neshama coming from. Everything is coming from Malchus of Atzilus. Malchus of Atzilus is called in Atzilus Nefesh Kol Chai. Malchus is Nefesh already. Nehim. You know, there's Chabad of Atzilus, there's Chagas of Atzilus, and Nehim of Atzilus. Malchus is the lowest, the Nefesh. That means that there's Neshama of Atzilus, there's the Ruach of Atzilus, there's the Nefesh of Atzilus. Malchus is a Nefesh of Atzilus, and the lowest aspect of the Nefesh of Atzilus, which is called Nefesh Kol Chai, the Nefesh that enlivens and creates and animates all living, all Chai, all the living beings. And what is the inyan of Galus, as Tzipi describes? She'eino me'ir rak b'bchinas kista de chayusa. That it shines, Malchus of Atzilus is not revealed to us. It causes us still to operate on the level of Nehi, but we are not inspired. And it's only b'bchinas kista de chayusa. There's only a trace of life that remains in Biyah from Malchus of Atzilus. Reshimu. Dibchinas ruach shebelev adam ha'elyon. Only a real trace from the ruach, from the heart of this divine man, of the Adam of Atzilus, is left. Veha'ibur, and there is a pregnancy, as a result, a spiritual pregnancy in Neshamos Israel. Ubchinas klalius Neshamos Israel. Neshamos of Israel, Knesset Israel is Malchus of Atzilus. And it is in a manner of sleep and pregnancy, meaning shehema kemashal havlad, that we are like an embryo beibur in pregnancy, shemekupal, that is all folded down, rosho ben birkav, to the extent that his head is between his knees. Kach hamoichin mechabad, so too, Yiddishkeit in a state of galus is like the moichin of Chabad. We are not inspired intellectually. We are not inspired. The moichin b'Chabad is behelem b'Chagas, is not revealed in Chagas, is hidden within Chagas. And Chagas itself, the emotions and the personal reaction is also concealed benehi, in Maised alone. Kemoshi is Be'er Emir Hashem Binyan Shkoran, as it will be explained more later. But this is what you are describing. That I'm doing, I got up, I'm not inspired, I'm depressed. Yes, I have a Father in heaven, and my Father is here, and I have a Yechida, but nothing of it is shining. I just drag my feet to wash my hands. I don't feel any inspirations. I daven, I don't know how I utter the words out of my mouth. It's like an embryo that is not alive. Not alive in terms of the revelation of Chabad and Chagas, and Nehi is very uninspired. That's a spiritual condition of operating only on the level of Nehi, because Nehi requires a concealment of Chabad and Chagas. So the avoida is to keep the flow open, and not that the head should be folded down, and we need to do it in terms of action itself. Yes, in terms of action itself, we need to sustain, so to speak, or not sustain, suspend the Chabad and Chagas in the moment of action. But overall, we need to keep the flow open, that we should keep being inspired and emotionally reactive to the knowing of our relationship with Hashem. The whole Jewish people now are waking up. We are not all woken up yet, not individually and not bechlal, but we are in the process of waking up, definitely. But what's the point? There are many points. One of them is the Mesiras Nefesh and Tzivos Hashem, and the ability to commit to a relationship even when we are not inspired. And that comes from a very high place. It comes from Yechida. It gives us the koach to endure and be 100% loyal to our relationship with God. And that is required in any relationship. That is a sign of maturity. When a person can be committed, not and you're a good wife not only when you're in love with your husband, also when you're not in love with him. It's a big thing. And as we know already, it's rooted in the Keser. It's rooted in the Pnimius HaNefesh, in the Yechida, the ability to be loyal under any circumstances. So there is a mila to it, then is a mila that does dira b'tachtonim. That it's not about us, it's about Hashem. That if I am his soldier, then whether I'm inspired or not, I am still functioning in creating a dira to Hashem. So there are many benefits. You know that there is a benefit of discipline, self-discipline and exercise, that whether you feel it, you don't feel it. Even an artist, I'm not an artist, but sometimes I like to like art, whatever it is. But an artist, a real artist, he knows that he has to show up and go to the canvas every morning, whether he's inspired or not, if he wants to get somewhere. So we know the power of discipline and the power of but yeah, it's not ideal. It's galus, and why there could be many reasons, but certainly when we wake up after all this, after this tardema, there is a tremendous shift in our being that is supported by all those years that we had Mesiras Nefesh, because now the Yechida can really, we made ourselves a keli to the Yechida Shebanefesh, to be totally inspired, totally. That it shouldn't be just intellectual, it shouldn't be just emotional, it should be a neshama inspiration, a Yechida inspiration. And Mesiras Nefesh and the loyalty that we demonstrated throughout the years of Galus creates that keli for the Yechida.
So it seems that Netzach and Yechida are very connected.
Yes, Netzach Israel lo yeshaker. Will never disappoint, will never falsify, will never fail. Will never fail. Very strong connection. Vehanimshal, and that's why we are Tzivos Hashem. When we came out of Mitzrayim, and now hopefully we will resolve the Hormuz Straits, Mitzrayim. We were called Tzivos Hashem, like an army. והנמשל יובן למעלה. So now we covered the three kelim of Atzilus, the brain, the heart, and the liver. And that we gave through the metaphor of the brain, the heart, and the liver of human. והנמשל, what's the analog? יובן למעלה בכללוס הכלים דאצילוס. It will be understood למעלה means Atzilus, above. In the general kelim of Atzilus, שהמה בבחינס מקור להשפעה בביאה כנ"ל. As we learn, the kelim of Atzilus are the source of השפעה to bria, yetzira, and asiya. Because a keli, we said, has two aspects to it, gvura and chesed. The gvura of the keli defines and contains the light and limits it, and the chesed of the keli is mashpia to the makaber. And in this case, the kelim of Atzilus are the source of hashpah to bria, yetzira, and asiya. How so? The inner kelim, the source of hashpah to bria. The middle kelim are source of hashpah to yetzira, and the outer kelim are source of hashpah to asiya. והנה אנו רואים בנבראים שיש ג' בחינוס. We also see that in the nivraim, in the created beings, the divine hashpah is manifesting in three aspects. Or v'chayus v'koyach. We discussed it at length in chapter Gimel, the third chapter and the view of the parashah at length. Or chayus and koyach. Or means light, chayus is vitality, and koach is power or a certain tool. Or what's or? So we see that corresponding to the inner, middle, and outer, there are three aspects of the energy in Bia, in the created world. Or Chayus and Koach. Light, vitality, and energy. Maybe you can call it like that. Light, vitality, and energy. Or, what's Or? Light. הוא בחינת ביטול הנמצא בכל הנבראים. Or is the inner bitul to the divine that is present in all beings. Neshamos umalachim de Bia. All neshamos and malachim of Bia have in them an inner awareness, an inner bitul to the divine. That is Or. Vahainu, that means, מצד השכלתם והשגתם בעצם עין המהווה. This comes from their insights, from their conceptualizing, and that's השכלה, חוכמה, והשגתם, the השגה, the בינה, and the understanding of the malachim, the neshamos, בעצם העין המהווה, regarding the ayin that creates. By the way, the term ayin means two things. The word ayin means two things. It means what, yesh me'ayin. So we're coming from where, from what? So ayin, one meaning of ayin is I don't understand, I don't recognize my source. Me'ayin. The yesh says, where am I coming from? The source is not understood. That's me'ayin. But ayin means also nothing. Ayin ve'efes. So there are two levels of ayin. There's ayin of yesh ha'amiti, of the true yesh, and there's ayin of yesh ha'nivra. The ayin of yesh ha'amiti is really higher, even though it means nothing. Because the ayin of yesh ha'amiti is really nothing. Like Or and Sof, comparing to Atzmus, is nothing. Now the ayin of yesh ha'nivra, of the created yesh, that's the ayin that we say we don't know what it is. From where? Yesh me'ayin. From where are we coming? We're not understood. So lichora, it's a higher ayin because it's something that's beyond my understanding. It looks higher than nothing. But really it's the lower ayin. It's the ayin that is associated with the nivraim. The higher ayin is associated with the borei, with the creator. The lower ayin, meaning of ayin, the lower ayin, which is from where and not understood, is connected to the created yesh. Anyhow, this is just a side comment. If you got it, good. If not, also good. But what is this bitul, this or that shines in the neshamos and the malachim? It comes from their understanding, conceptualizing and understanding in the ayin me'haveh, in the ayin that creates itself. The ayin that creates, yesh me'ayin. Ayin doesn't mean nothing creates, godliness creates. But to the Nivaim, it's ayin, they don't not understood. They cannot realize what it is. Ech she'efes bilado. So the Nivraim are realizing that nothing exists without that ayin that creates them. That we are all coming yesh me'ayin. And the awareness of that creates a bitul in all conscious Nivraim. וכוח הביטול זה הוא נמשך גם כן בהספיילוס. And this power of bitul that comes out of realizing and understanding our total dependence on the ayin that creates us, this is nimshach, it comes down also next page בהספיילוס, in a personal reaction, in midos. והיינו, but what kind of reaction the Nivraim have to this kind of understanding? Hispilus bederech hafla'a. It's a wonderment. Hafla'a, it's like a pele. It's like a wonder. It's hispilus, yes, there is a reaction, but it's a reaction that you react to something that is higher than you, and it's a wonder. מעצם המהווה. There is a wondering kind of reaction of the Creator itself, that which creates us, that we are coming, yes, we are created, yesh me'ayin, and this total dependency on the ayin, and nothing can exist without it, creates an ispilus and reaction of hafla, of wonderment, bewilderment, wonder. Kanal besiman hey. In chapter 5, you can go back and read more, learn more about it as we did. Until, I'm going to stop here, שנמשך במעשה בפועל ממש. So this hafla, this sense of being impressed and being affected in a wondrous way, is not, it can come down all the way to מעשה בפועל ממש. What is מעשה בפועל ממש? שהוא בחינת הביטול שבמעשה. It is the bitul in action. Because we are aware of and inspired by and wondered in a manner of hafla, of a pele, of a wonder, to the Creator, the creating ayin, that without it nothing can exist. This bitul comes all the way to מעשה בפועל, שנמשך מזה תוקף הזהירוס, that from there, from this awe, from this insight, from this awareness, comes an intense cautiousness and carefulness, לא לנטוס אפילו כקוצו של יוד, not to deviate, even an iota, that the tip of the yud, שזהו from the will of Hashem, in terms of doing mitzvahs, and doing them exactly, and doing them on time, and doing them the way Hashem wants, מצד דאגה פנימית שבלב, that comes, that is created by an inner worry, so to speak, an inner concern in the heart, שלא להיפרד חס ושלום, not to be separate, God forbid, from our Creator. ורוצה להידבק חולו, and he wants to cleave to him. ודל. And we will learn that this koach hamaisi is not only in the shama, not only in the person, also b'malachim, that they become shluchei hashefa, to mashpia, and they don't deviate from the shlichus at all if they have the or shining, this awareness of being created yesh me'ayin and depending completely on the Creator. Okay, we'll just begin this part of the discussion, and this is regarding the or. And we didn't finish it, and then we'll go to Chayus, and we'll go to Koyach, and we'll end by the mitzvahs, the 248 mitzvahs that are an expression of all this.